Lumpy Pear's Adventure, Episode 9. Lumpy woke up. Something was dripping on his head. A lot of things were dripping on his head. It was a big rainstorm. Lumpy looked over and saw Nightmare just laying there, snoring. He snored all night. And when they were lying by the campfire, half of their body was warm and half of their body was cold. The half that was by the fire was warm, and the other half was cold from all the canyon air that was blowing the whole night. They were freezing on one side, and so he'd roll over and then get toasty, and then roll over and get toasty. The other half would freeze. And now it was raining. They had to go through the canyon. Who knew how long it was going to take? They couldn't go up the mountain. They couldn't go around it. They had to go through this canyon. So, Lumpy woke up Nightmare, climbed on, and he was afraid to tell Nightmare to move, just in case Nightmare was going to buck him off. But he didn't. It was like they knew that they went through something difficult. So they were friends. Or at least that's what Lumpy thought, because, of course, the horse couldn't talk to him.
Daddy?
Yes.
He's on his adventure.
Yep. So, Lumpy patted Nightmare kind of on the back, as if to say, "Let's go." And Nightmare took off, not as fast as he did. Lumpy thought maybe he was still sore from the arrow that hit him. But that's not what it was. Nightmare knew about this canyon. Lumpy didn't know anything about this canyon. That skeleton that shot at them was one of many, and they lived in the canyon. So Nightmare was very cautious, looking around, making sure that no skeletons would get them. So he tried to be as quiet as possible. Because if one skeleton knows, then they tell the other skeletons. And when you're down low and the skeletons are up high, you're going to get shot at the whole time. So they went carefully, quietly through the canyon. It seemed to go on forever. It followed a river that bent every which way, on and on and on. It was so cold and rainy, and it was dark because the sun didn't reach the middle of the sky yet. And when you're in a canyon, there's mostly shadows, which is why there were so many skeletons. And it was raining, and so it was so muddy. It was slippery. So they had to take their time. And the river was getting bigger and bigger, because that's what rivers do when it rains, especially in a canyon. All the water goes down. Well, Nightmare was walking, and he stepped on a branch. Crack! It was loud. It was too loud. All of a sudden, an arrow went right into the tree, right between Lumpy's head and Nightmare's head.
A skeleton.
Oh no, a skeleton. Another arrow went right behind Lumpy's head into another tree. Uh-oh, they were on to them. Nightmare took off running like lightning. Yeah, they didn't have a cookie. Yep, they didn't. Shh, 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 shh. So they took off running as fast as they could. Nightmare was galloping with Lumpy on top. Lumpy was just trying to hang on. He almost got thrown off.
What?
Then there were 50 skeletons at least shooting at them from both sides. One of the arrows scratched Lumpy's arm. They were getting closer. Now there was at least 100 skeletons. Arrows were filling the sky. It was so hard to see. What? No, Nightmare couldn't jump over them. He was running, and it was raining. So remember, it was so muddy and slippy, and it was pouring down, and the river was getting bigger.
Hey, the mud could be pretty handy. Then they could.
Shh, listen. They were running. Nightmare was running. All these arrows, it was a wonder that neither of them were hit. Nightmare turned so he wouldn't run into a tree. And as he turned, he faced a creeper.
Dun, dun.
The creeper was right there. Lumpy and Nightmare couldn't get away. Lumpy felt the explosion against his back. It pushed Nightmare further, faster than he was already running. Except something else terrible happened. All of a sudden, the explosion caused a giant mudslide. The canyon on both sides started to collapse and fall because it was so slippy and muddy. It was pouring down like a giant mud rock waterfall. The only good thing was all of the skeletons were getting buried. Nightmare was now running against a landslide. Running and running as it was piling up behind him. The water in front of him was getting higher and higher. "Run, Nightmare, run!" Lumpy yelled. Nightmare whinnied loud. "Run!" The mud was getting higher and thicker. "Run!" Lumpy closed his eyes tight as he held on to Nightmare. And then all of a sudden, Lumpy felt like he was flying. What happened? He opened his eyes. Nightmare had jumped. But why did he jump? Lumpy looked down. He wished he didn't look down. Nightmare just jumped off a cliff. A very high cliff.
Why?
The river was pouring into a waterfall. Luckily, at the bottom, as Lumpy yelled, "Ah!" Splash! They landed in water.
Well, good thing they didn't land in grass.
They made it through the canyon. Mud just started pouring from the waterfall. And they swam to shore, sopping wet. Totally soaked.
Was it still raining?
Oh no. Lumpy looked at the book. Pages were falling out. Oh no, my whole trip. This book is getting ruined. Lumpy didn't know what to do. He stuck the book under his shirt. He stuck the book under his shirt and tried to keep going. They were so exhausted. Nightmare was exhausted. He couldn't carry Lumpy anymore. He was too tired. But they tried to walk and find a way to get out of the rain. They walked for at least another hour, and then the rains finally stopped. It had been raining for 6 hours straight. A huge downpour. They were wet, and they were safe. So it wasn't that bad. The rain stopped, and Lumpy said, I think we should stop our journey today. I'm so tired. Then, as they sat, Lumpy looked for dry wood to make a fire. He chopped down an oak tree, made some blocks and some planks, and lit a fire. He built a little hut, and he held the book up over the warm fire, not so it would burn, so it would dry out. And it started to dry, but something else started to happen to the book. Pages where there was no writing on it. All of a sudden, new words appeared. It was like getting it wet and then warming it up made an invisible ink show up. And he could read some of these words. He opened up the book in disbelief that he could read, and it talked about a magical kingdom that had secrets and treasures, gold and silver, diamonds, emeralds, mountains of glowstone and redstone, all for everyone that lived in the kingdom. Nobody was poor. Lumpy was wondering, is this the place that I'm going to? This is amazing. He stayed up really late, looking over the same words and the same pictures, wondering about this place that he was going to. How many more days could it possibly be, he thought. He looked around. It was getting dark. For some reason, he felt really safe. There was nothing bad at all. He could see really far. There were no spiders. All the skeletons were buried, at least all the ones around here. He looked in the water and he just saw some squid swimming around and a couple fish jumping. He took his fishing pole, cast it in, and immediately, bam! A fish bit the lure. He reeled it in and cooked it on the fire, and he offered some to Nightmare. Nightmare just snorted at it. Like, what are you trying to do? I don't eat fish. What do you think I am, a dog? That's not what he said, but that's what it looked like when he snorted. So Lumpy thought, oh yeah, that's right. Horses don't eat meat. He went into the woods to find some grass or hay or something. And that's right, he found an apple tree, loaded with apples. He climbed up the tree and jumped on all the branches, shaking and shaking and shaking. Apples just rained down. Nightmare could hear the sound of this thudding on the ground of all the apples and came over to investigate. Shake, 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 shake. Jump, jump, jump. Lumpy was dumping all the tree's apples out onto the ground. And then Nightmare came over and started eating them. Oh, he was the happiest horse you'd ever saw. And just as Lumpy was getting out of the tree, he thought, I'm going to give it one more shake. And he jumped on the branch. Snap! The branch broke. And down came Lumpy. Boom! Right on Nightmare. Nightmare got spooked and bucked him off. Ow! He fell on the ground. And from the tree, thunk! Ow! It felt like a rock hit him in the head. It was an apple. Except it wasn't an apple. Well, it was an apple. It was a gold apple. Oh my goodness. I've only heard about gold apples. This is amazing. Nightmare just went right for it, was about to bite it, and Lumpy grabbed it. No, 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 Nightmare. We need to save this for something special. But look, I gave you all these apples, and we're going to save a bunch so you could have them for the rest of your journey. Nightmare was happy. Lumpy could tell. Let's go back to our campfire. I'll finish my fish, and you eat another however many apples you're going to eat, and we'll go to sleep. So that night they snuggled up. Lumpy was full of his fish. He ate one of his apples, and Nightmare was full of apples. In fact, he kept burping and tooting all night long. It was smelly. So Lumpy rolled over to the other side of the campfire. You stay over there, Nightmare. I'd rather freeze tonight. The end of episode 9. Dun, 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 dun,
Like
dun,
at the
dun.
very end, Nightmare burps finally.
That was about 18 minutes. That was pretty good.
Yeah.